Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. 10 minutes past the hour of 8 a.m. You're watching UBC TV. Welcome to the agenda session. My name is Philomena Masco, and as always, very glad and happy to be having you join us for these necessary conversations that we always have and are very important in the wee hours of the day. I do encourage you to be part of them. Make use of all the social media platforms, Twitter, hashtag UBCGMU, and our WhatsApp platform 0709-602-592. The line is open. You can always let us know, be part of the conversations, share your tech, your 2 cents, and of course, all questions are very welcome. This morning's discussion, very necessary for us to have because it's part of us. We will be talking about the Africa Public Service Day. And of course, Uganda will be joining the rest of the continent to commemorate this day on Friday, 23rd at Kololo Airstrip. Now, we will be talking more about this day and the story behind it. Why should we be commemorating it? And anyway, when we talk about Africa Public Service Day, what exactly do we mean? Now, these questions, I am pretty sure will be given the right responses by our very special guest this morning, who is joining us, and she's going to be sharing us more intel, sharing with us more intel and more insights about this day. Well, I'm very happy to be joined by the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Public Service, that is Catherine Betarakwate Musingwide. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Well, getting straight to the Africa Public Service Day, definitely we know that it's going to be running under the theme, the African Continental Free Trade Area will require a fit-for-purpose African public administration to succeed. We will be looking into the theme, of course, as well. But first things first, Africa Public Service Day, what are we talking about? Could you break it down for us?
Africa Public Service Day is a day when we celebrate the public service. We inform our nation and the world at large the purpose of government in socio-economic development, transformation, and delivery of services. This was a day that was first commemorated by the United Nations in 2002. That is when they decided that government needs to recognize itself and inform the public about what it does. And from that time, about 10 years later, the African Union picked this day and made a resolution about adopting an African version of the Public Service Day. So that is why we are celebrating the Africa Public Service Day.
Okay.
So world over, different countries are going to be showcasing what government does, recognizing best achievers, innovation in public service, and really looking at how it impacts on our societies and our nations.
Okay. Well, zeroing to the theme where we're looking at key things, we have the free trade area. The theme is also talking about a purpose of African public administration to succeed. What exactly do you think lies under this theme? What is the end game of this theme?
The Africa Free Trade Area, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, is an area of commerce, really, where a number of countries, there are 53 countries, that have signed an agreement to have ease of doing business amongst themselves. Uganda is one of the signatories. And in this area, where the main purpose is reducing all obstacles, challenges towards regional trade. And the fact that this is in the era where our National Development Plan 3 and the NRM Manifesto 2021-2026 is speaking to reducing poverty, increasing agro-industrialization, and promoting trade. It specifically speaks to our intentions as a country. In this regard, for the Africa free trade area to succeed, you need public servants that are aligned towards improving and supporting the private sector, increasing agricultural production, increasing industrialization, and generally making sure that productivity goes up. Productivity goes up and all our traders achieving what they want to achieve.
Okay.
So the purpose of this day is focusing on that we must see our role as public administrators in achieving the intentions of the National Development Plan, the intentions of the NRM Manifesto, and thus promoting socio-economic development.
Okay, and I love the fact that you talk about socio-economic development, because we were coming to that. If you, the viewer out there would really want to understand the contribution of public service, because again, we've come to understand that public service is usually a word we throw around, but we don't understand exactly its contribution, whether on a large scale or on a small scale, to socio-economic development of a country. So for a country like Uganda, what would be the contribution of public service to our socio-economic development?
The contribution of public service to socio-economic development is quite broad. First of all, we look at it in terms of enabling our citizens generate taxes and collecting taxes. We also do pay taxes. We invest the revenues collected into various social services, like infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the airlines. We invest in medical services, ensuring that our population is healthy, ensuring that people are getting treatment, or even on the other side, preventing ill health. We invest in local governance. We invest in the education sector, ensuring that their schools are running at the different levels, right from the primary to the tertiary, to the secondary and tertiary institutions. Public service is really about giving services. There are other services that we ensure are given. For example, immigration services. We are providing passports, also enabling citizens move within the region and outside of the region by providing passports. There are really a host of services that we provide. There's also governance.
Yes.
Governance right from the LC level, LC1 up to LC5 in the local governments. In the cities, we have city mayors who make decisions. We make decisions for our people. Then at a national level, there's one, the legislature, governance. Then on the side of the law, we have got the judiciary, which ensures that the law is executed. We've got the Directorate of Public Prosecutions. We have, all these provide services. We have got justice, Ministry of Justice, where we have the state attorneys. We've got the Attorney General, who is the lead person in giving legal advice to government. And all this is in the Constitution. So there are three arms of government. There's the executive, where I fall. There is the judiciary, and there's the legislature. Those are the three arms of government. You know, the legislature ends up at the peak of it is where you find the speaker, you find parliament.
Yes.
And that is where various laws are enacted. Yes.
Well, we're talking about the Africa Public Service Day that we are going to be celebrating on the 23rd of June, just a couple of days away from today. And we're looking at a public service. What does this mean for a country like ours? What kind of service do they render to a Ugandan man and a Ugandan woman? And of course, we would much later on divert into how Uganda is planning to commemorate this day and looking at a series of activities that are planned for this very specific event. But before we get into that, I think it's also very important for us to understand some of the challenges that come or that you face as a very specific docket. We would really want to, if you can, paint a picture, some of these challenges that you face as ministry.
Just like any other sphere of society, government as big as it is, with over 350,000 officers working in there, does face challenges. One of the challenges is on implementation of our role. You find that one, the expectations of the citizens are not necessarily matching with the resource envelope.
Yes.
And with the mode of service delivery. The other is information. I know you are from the Fourth Estate. The media in its various forms, the journalists, our mass communicators. You find that the citizens have got very, very big expectations of government. But government has got a limited resource envelope. And within that limited resource envelope, we do find that the budgeting for the various services may not be 100%. You are aware that the budget has just been read.
Yes.
And of course, most of the time what the citizens expect is a reduction in taxes, an increase in expenditure on health, education, and infrastructure. But each time you're thinking of reduction of taxes, you need to know that whenever you reduce taxes, the resource envelope becomes smaller. And yet our population is increasing annually. We have one of the biggest populations, fastest growing populations in Africa. But then the services are not meeting these expectations and the citizens as they should. So striking a balance between what is priority for government annually and what the citizens would require is one of the biggest challenges. And we're facing that literally on all fronts. However, I would think that the most reasonable way to handle this is to keep informing the citizens. When there is more information about how we are going, about our business and the projections, giving them the projections of what we expect in terms of income, then probably they would reduce the expectation in terms of the expenditure and how it impacts on our citizens. And that is why I would encourage everyone to get involved, most especially to listen in the post-budget discussions.
Yes.
To get involved with their local leaders and see how we can really cut costs and not make matters dire. For example, when we are talking about public health and looking at how the citizen can contribute to reducing expenditure on public health, especially sanitation, then we talk about responsible garbage management, responsible management of garbage and disposition. Because the more waste that we put into the drainages, the more waste we litter around, will create avenues for stagnation of water and growth of malaria parasites. So that is the kind of responsibility we should be looking at. That as much as government has a role to play, we all should be responsible. And we need to keep informed. If you can't afford a newspaper, no problem, but you can afford to listen to news. You can afford to listen to news, you can afford to listen to main addresses from the nation, from the executive, that give us a direction of where we are going to.
Okay. Well, getting back now to the commemoration here in Uganda, what are the intended objectives, specifically looking at only the Ugandan scope? What are the objections of this commemoration here in this country?
The objectives of the commemoration of the Africa Public Service Day in Uganda, one, is to highlight the importance of government, to give back to society through corporate social responsibility, to give information to our citizens, to give them access to services on the spot, to have an open day for all our institutions, that the public can walk in, get information, get services on the day, probably in a different way. Being given all the information they need, and also demystifying some of the supposedly complex processes that through which we deliver our services. For example, if someone wants a national ID, they can just walk in and get it really in a few minutes.
Okay. And speaking of commemorating it, I would also love to understand, I know that there are activities that have already been put into place that you plan on executing or already are, of course, prior to the D-Day. So could you take us through what are these activities that we would be expecting, of course, from us, the public? Yes.
This week we normally have a precursor to the actual day. One of them is a sports gala of public servants, and it's taking place at Makere Sports Ground. It started on Monday and will be ending on Thursday. That is on the eve of the Africa Public Service Day. We are giving media publicity for what government does on various forums. We have also arranged for corporate social responsibility. Some of the main items which main events I can highlight is the cleaning of Naguru Hospital. The other is cleaning of Luzira Market, and others which are going to be throughout the country. We have also encouraged local governments where they are to carry out open days, to run barazas, so that the public can see what activities are going on and get informed. On the actual day, the D-Day, the 23rd of June, 2023, we're going to start with a walk from Ministry of Public Service. This walk is going to be involve various institutions across government who are in the central government, walking from Ministry of Public Service to Kololo. At Kololo, we're going to have an exhibition of various services. So far, we do have 40 exhibitors who are various government institutions. For example, Uganda Police, a Ministry of Defense, a Ministry of Public Service, State House, Agriculture, Ministry of Health. There are very many who are going to be there. Ministry of Internal Affairs, Ministry of Energy, who are going to be showing the public what is it that they give as services. It is a very informative interaction, and the public is invited to come and see what this animal called government provides. So we're going to demystify a lot of things. It's going to be a very interesting occasion. The other is there's going to be a paper of the day. The paper of the day is the unpacking of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which requires a fit-for-purpose Africa public administration to succeed. This is going to go into the technicalities of what this free trade area is, and also really pinpointing the responsibility of the different arms of government and public administration on how they can make it succeed. Yes. Then we're going to have some entertainment by our very own from Uganda Police and Uganda Prisons, and interaction amongst the public servants and of course the public, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay. Well, I do have some interesting questions here. There is a viewer who is talking about if the permanent secretary, Catherine, could actually talk about the reviewing of salaries of government payroll or government workers. That would be a bit more insightful. What is the plan on that very specific topic?
Thank you very much. Whoever has sent that, that question is very relevant. And indeed, that is why we do exist. One of the roles of the Ministry of Public Service is to review terms and conditions of service. And in this regard, we receive an input from the service commissions, that is the Public Service Commission, Health Service Commission, Education Service Commission, who make proposals to what they view as areas for review. Salaries is one of them. So we received all this input from the service commissions and made proposals to Cabinet about the salaries that we should be having. And we do have a pay policy and a pay plan,
yes,
which we have been implementing since 2018. It has been implemented in piecemeal according to availability of resources. However, what I would want to assure everyone is that as we go on, we'll keep picking on the next groups that are scheduled for increment, so that their pay can be commensurate to the cost of living.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Well, also, I think it would be very necessary for us to understand, again, because the Ministry of Public Service is quite it deals with a lot. You did highlight a couple of arms of government. It actually deals with all arms of government, but even very many other things. But also, it's very important to know, what do you do as a public service to ensure that there is proficiency in the way you operate, there is transparency in the way you operate, there is delivery of actual delivery of service. What do you do to ensure that that is realized by the citizens of Uganda?
Okay. The Ministry of Public Service in particular is responsible for human resource management of the whole of government. And we do have the Public Service Standing Orders, which clearly stipulate all these aspects. One of them is in ensuring how we work. We do provide the jobs and job descriptions, the terms and conditions of work. We also provide a performance management framework in which the performance targets are agreed to, supervision processes are clearly laid out, and also the rewards and sanctions are also clearly laid out in a framework. So that is how we ensure that this is done.
Okay.
We create the structures for the institutions, because in order to have work done, you need human resources. So we provide those structures and a clear outline of the job descriptions, the schemes of service, and job specifications. Then how the supervisors should be supervising their supervisees, when the performance contracts should be signed at the beginning of the financial year. That is done in July. And then an assessment is done in June of the following year. Along the way, there's provisions for quarterly review of performance. In all this, the Ministry of Finance gives us, provides budgets through which we operate, and there's an annual work plan which is broken up into quarters. And those quarters are supervised both in terms of physical output and financial performance. And that is how we ensure that government undertakes its business. Okay. And you will note that this is what feeds into the State of Nation address, what we have achieved, what we intend to achieve. So we are the people in the kitchen, in the background, ensuring that officers and men are recruited, appointed, supervised to the point where they exit. And we ensure that their salaries are paid on time, the allowances are provided for, and whatever it takes to make sure that public officers do their work.
Okay. William Opero is talking about there's been delayed the payment of salaries of some government workers. Could we understand why this is happening?
This financial year, there was something different that happened in terms of the budgeting of the salaries and in terms of the execution of the salaries. At the point of disbursement of the budget, there was enhancement of the sciences and some of the legals in the Directorate of Public Prosecution. However, at the point of implementation, there were a few things that did not go right in terms of our officers who are out there. And the overall calculations were not equivalent to the people on the ground. There were a number of challenges that were faced, which were picked up by ourselves, Ministry of Finance, and we advised the Office of the Auditor General to do an audit of the payroll so that we could clarify what exactly is on the ground. And one of the first issues that was noted was that there was a need for supplementary budgets in order to cover up, to close the gap on the wage shortfalls. And that is why there has been a bit of a hitch. Then there was a mix of confusion as to who is a scientist and who is not.
Did we come to a conclusion?
I think that confusion was with of course, when there is more bread on that side,
yes.
There was probably a lot of a back and forth in the votes. By votes, I mean the various institutions across the country where there were debates and some mixes of who is who. And that brought some hitches into the smooth flow of payroll management. We have since ironed out most of them. There may be a spillover where there are recoveries that have to be made for those who are paid erroneously, but the supplementary budgets that were released have evened out the shortfalls that occurred.
Okay. As we're coming to the end of this, we would also love to know what's the plan? What are you planning as the public sector ministry, rather public service ministry? How do you intend to even better on your service delivery that is going to ease, of course, the relation between public service and the citizens of Uganda? We just want to know, what's the future plan?
The plan we have is one on strengthening the performance management framework, but also strongly moving ahead with the mindset change program, so that we rally our civil servants to actually look and focus at the citizens' needs first. The other is making the citizens more arming them with knowledge regarding accountability, that they can ask the right questions regarding disbursement of the budgets that come to their jurisdiction, for example, in the local governments, by giving more information so that we strengthen the downward accountability, that someone right from the parish level up to the highest level is able to question and say, this is the promise that you made, I am not receiving it. The other is strengthening the service delivery standards. Right now, the Ministry of Public Service is validating the agreed service delivery standards with various sectors of government, including the private sector, so that it is agreed. If my service delivery standard for registration of land is, let me say, 14 days, then it must be so. When we agree on those service delivery standards and then we publicize them, then the citizen will be able to demand and will be accountable according to what the promise we have made.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. Any final shots in regards to the commemoration of this day? What would be your last remarks?
My last remarks on this is encouraging all our public servants to come out in their various locations to celebrate the Public Service Day, and for the local governments to have open days where they are giving the citizens information, to go out on the various media and give information on what we do, and really to focus on the citizen first. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Catherine Betarakwate Msingwire, the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Public Service, talking about Africa Public Service Day that is going to be happening on the 23rd of June 2023 under the theme, the African Continental Free Trade Area will require fit-for-purpose African public administration to succeed. Well, we'll leave the conversation at that, but we have sports updates coming in from Ruben Mpima Chibidango right after this. And of course, Good Morning Uganda Extra will be kicking in right after that. Have a wonderful Wednesday. I am Philomena Masco. Good morning, Uganda.
Attention, Coffee Farm.